Hello. Hello, it's Anna Brooks here. Welcome to episode 7 of Anna's Dose of Reality. I apologize for the lighting. It is obviously really dark in here. Actually, let me see if I can get some more. There we go, make myself a little bit brighter. Okay, cool. So I need to be really wary of keeping a track on my on my battery life on my phone. It is absolutely dying on me at the moment, and I will be getting a new phone this weekend. So until then, I'm going to try and get through this because I've really missed live streaming. I've missed talking to you guys and letting you know what's going on. However, I won't go off on too many rambles today because it is an episode of a particular segment that I do, which is Anna's Dose of Reality. So I will stay on the point for this one so that this is really easily rewatchable and not too much to do with what's going on right now. But I promise I'll probably do a live stream like tomorrow or the day after anyway, and just keep you updated on what's going on this side of things. All right, so let's get into it. So what I want to talk to you about today in Anna's Dose of Reality episode 7 is about basically something that quite often, and for myself personally, has led to sabotage and addiction, right? And this is around the idea of having a different public and a different private persona. And so this is something that's so prevalent's the word, and so consistent right now in the world with the technology the way that it is. This is something that is just, most people see it as just a part of reality, right? That you have this persona that you put on for public, right? So what you put on your social media, what you put through your Instagram, depending how much you're into all that kind of stuff, but definitely the people that, have the most followers, have the most attention, all that kind of stuff by large. And I know that there are exceptions, but by large, the people who have a great big following and have that social media engagement are people who have a very particularly constructed public persona, right? So the way that they present themselves, the way their photos are put together, the way their filters are done, the way that they're photoshopped, everything is very much managed and very conscious of making sure that there's a certain public persona that's being put out, right? And what they are in private and what's going on in private might be actually very different. And I know that this is huge in the health and fitness industry because I know personally, unfortunately, of a lot of people who are exactly like this, who basically just put on a show for what they say and what they, the stuff they put up on their social media, but what's going on in private is completely different. And whilst I'm talking about other people, quite honestly, a lot of it I'm talking about myself, because this was exactly what I was doing and who I was, even though I wasn't huge on social media back then, many years ago. But it was exactly what I was doing because I had binge eating disorder and I was a personal trainer. This week is actually my last week as a personal trainer ever, so this is quite exciting. But I took a break for a couple of years, basically because I had developed this persona of how I'm so perfect and I work out every day, and I do that now anyway, but for different reasons, right? So there was a persona that I'd put out that you have to always be eating clean, you have to always be perfect if you're not doing this and this and this, and if you're not working out like this and this and this and all that kind of stuff. And I had this persona of just basically being a health freak, right? That I'd put out to my clients and everything like that, when secretly and on the inside in private, I was binge eating. I was eating copious amounts. I would say more than most of my clients probably, because some of them were, just a little bit overweight or something like that. And I wasn't, but that was because I was exercising excessively. And by excessively, I mean hours and hours a day. There were days when I would be exercising for like 4 or 5 hours. So it's very excessive, right? And so the problem was that I'd put on this persona in public of how I wanted to be portrayed in terms of how I wanted to be seen as an authority figure, as someone who's got it all together, someone who's perfect. A big part of my first book that I wrote that's up on Amazon now, The Problem with Being Perfect. If you haven't got that yet, check it out now. I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but seriously, if you go on Amazon and look up me, Anna Brooks, The Problem with Being Perfect, get that as an ebook. It's incredible. It's a whole basically story, but interwoven with different lessons about the issue that we have these days about this push to be perfect. And it's just such an incredibly deep book as well. Anyway, tangents. So I put on this persona of how I wanted to be perceived, when really in private, with my binge eating, with everything, and how much I hated myself basically, and did not like my body, did not like anything about myself, that was a completely different story. Okay, cool. The battery's not going down too much. Right, so, and the problem is that very much, and this is why it leads into this addiction and sabotage kind of lesson that I wanted to talk about, is because it very much is something that leads to basically a disconnect between who you really are, who you really feel that you are, and what you think is worthy or good enough to show to other people, right? And the further down and the longer you do this, the more prevalent, the bigger that gap between those two personas becomes, right? So for me, it became huge because I was literally this like walking, talking health, fitness freak, perfect, clean eating, all that kind of stuff in public and with my clients and all that kind of thing. And what was going on behind the scenes was the exact opposite. Like, yes, I was definitely very fit. Like, you can't not be fit when you exercise as much as I do, or did back then. However, in terms of the perfect and, never eating junk food and all that kind of crap, that was just a show. That was such a show, and it was so full of so much crap. And the problem was that it just fueled my addiction even further, because it made me feel even more so that who I am in private, who I really am on the inside, isn't worthy. It's not good enough. If I show that to my clients, if I show that to the world, I won't be loved, I won't be accepted, I'll be shunned, I'll be hated, I'll die in a little hole somewhere, right? That's basically what your soul feels when you put yourself in that position. I know it's really dramatic, but that is what your soul feels, that, at the core, we all really want to be loved and we want to be accepted. And that's all well and good, except when you set these parameters to say, well, I can only be loved and accepted and worthy if I am actually a particular way and I present myself a particular way. If I actually show my private self in public, I won't be loved, I'm not good enough, I should go die in a hole. Okay? So it's really important to understand that. I'm not saying that, everything, obviously we all have different social media needs, right? So I'm a public figure, so that's what I do. I talk about things and I do it publicly, and I'm very open about it because that is part of my brand, that is part of my image that I'm building. However, for most people who that's not what you're doing and it's just a personal page or whatever, then fine, that's different, right? However, when it comes to, maybe apply this more so to your day-to-day work, right? So maybe your job, whatever career you have, whether you work for yourself, whether you work for someone else, the way that you interact with your colleagues and everything. I do understand that in different industries, there's different code of conduct that's expected. But having said that, and having been around so many people in so many different areas in terms of jobs and industries, you really can be yourself, right? To a certain degree. I mean, if who you are is just completely at a disconnect from your role, basically, then at the end of the day, it's not going to work either. If you are having to basically put on a completely different version of yourself every single day to turn up and do your work and do your purpose work and do your passion and basically make your way in this world, following and creating a lifestyle by design, which is obviously why you're here, why you're following me, is because you don't want to have the standard quo lemming lifestyle, right? So if that's what you're going to do, and you have to get up every single day and basically pretend to be somebody else, act a different way to what feels natural for you, and in a way that makes you actually feel unworthy and less than, that's not going to create anything lasting for you to live with. And don't get me wrong, you can do it your whole life. So many people do. So many people do pick a job, a career, whatever you want to call it, where they literally hate it. They hate the way that they have to be. They hate the industry they're in. They hate the people that they're surrounded by. And they have to show up and be a certain way and put on a certain persona. And then at the end of the night, at the end of the day, they all come home. They're so depressed. They're so upset with themselves. They sit on the couch. They eat a bunch of crap food and just tune out and watch some reality TV, because that's essentially their only escape from the fact that their reality sucks, right? But it's a choice. It's a choice that they've put themselves into. So same thing here. You can do exactly the same thing, but if you're going to show up every single day and put on this public persona and pretend to be a particular way and all this kind of stuff, and then in private you're completely different, eventually that disconnect is going to feed into your internal motivations, into your internal mindset. It's going to feed into your soul, basically. It's going to die a little bit on the inside and a little bit more and a little bit more. And you're going to find yourself in these cycles of sabotage and addiction and that kind of stuff, right? So as much as I understand that there needs to be a particular, I suppose, code of conduct, like I said, in particular roles and that kind of thing. Having said that, the best people in each industry that I've ever met, the people who absolutely love what they do, and you can tell, and the clients love them, and they love what they're doing, and they show up every day with passion, and even when it's hard, they still show up and do it because they want to. All those people that really, really make it work and make it work into their life, do bring a huge part of themselves into the role, right? Even if that is not exactly the status quo of what everybody else is doing. So even if this is not exactly what a typical, person in your job is doing, just because that's not happening doesn't mean that you can't do your job even better if you bring yourself, right? Because if you have this separation between your public and your personal, or your public and your private persona in the way that you are, you're always going to find yourself in a position where basically you're saying over and over to yourself every single time you have to go and go, okay, now I'm going to put on my, public persona or whatever it is. You're going to find yourself in that position where inside you feel like something is dying, where you feel like you feel exhausted, right? And this is something that I did for a long time, where I would just, I had a lot of my money issues and a lot of my money blocks came around the feeling I've realized from feeling less than and feeling like I always really believed that I'm going to be rich, I'm going to be famous, I'm going to be a huge influence, I'm going to just influence and impact so many people's lives and change their lives and all that kind of thing. I always had that inside of me and I knew that. And as much as I just knew that that was going to be part of my future, I also subconsciously believed that rich people, wealthy people, successful people, people who have made a big difference in the world, they're just different to me, right? That I'm just not good enough. I'm not as worthy as them, right? And when you have that kind of belief, of course, you're going to try to put on a persona to fill those roles, to just, to make yourself feel like I can do this, I can be this person, I can be just as good as them. And the problem is that it's always that feeling from within that, yeah, but the only reason I think that I can be like this or be like them is because I'm not, right? I'm not actually like them, but I can pretend to be. I can put on this, I can put on those shoes, I can put on that outfit, I can speak like they speak, I can do this and do that. And at the end of the day, what's really underlying is still that feeling of, well, I'm not good enough. I'm not actually worthy of this. I don't actually deserve this, right? So really important to have a look at how are you in private versus how are you in public. And I don't just mean in your job, I mean in your day-to-day life with, friends or social activities, that kind of stuff, or at your work is obviously a really, really big one because that's somewhere where people do feel a lot of pressure to act a particular way. And it can become really, really toxic if you've been in a particular environment for a long time where you've, for example, became the runt of the workplace or whatever it is, or the one who was the bully or the one who was bullied or whatever it is. Once you've sort of got that role assigned to you, over the years it can change, but also over many more years it just doesn't, and it just sticks and it becomes your persona and it becomes who you are. So you become the person who's always meek and who always, backs down from the argument, or you become the person who's always really boisterous and always really loud and, or for me, it was very much about showing how happy I am and how energetic and how healthy and all this kind of stuff, and basically being just the awesome kind of, the awesome, I've lost my train of thought now, the fitness trainer, right? The person who is an embodiment of health and fitness. That was basically, I had this idea in my head of what that person had to look like, how they had to act, how they had to behave, all that kind of stuff, and that was what I was living. But the problem was that wasn't what was going on inside, right? I was going through a lot of stuff internally in my mindset and everything like that. And so it wasn't true. There was a total disconnect between that, and just got worse and worse and worse. And the sabotage and the binge eating and everything just got worse and worse and worse until I realized, for me, the best decision was walking away from personal training for some time, because it was just becoming a toxic environment for me. However, in another scenario, it just may mean quite simply just accepting that, yeah, you know what, I have become very different. I do feel like I have a different hat that I put on in this situation, a different hat that I put on in this situation, but one of those situations doesn't even feel like me. It feels exhausting, it feels draining, it feels painful to my soul, right? We all have different hats, okay? I know I always talk about that I am very bubbly and that I am very talkative and all that kind of thing, for sure. But I'm not talking to myself when I'm sitting on the couch and, going through my client stuff or doing emails or whatever it is. I'm not talking to myself all the time. We all have different sides of our personalities. We all have different, shades of our personas, right? So that's fine. You can have the different hats, and it doesn't mean that you can't be a little bit different in this situation, a little bit different in that situation. That's fine. We are, we're humans. We are like majestic and flexible as fuck, so we can do whatever the fuck we want. However, if it feels like one of those hats, one of those personas that you're putting on is draining to you, it's killing you, it's not really, you just feel like you've just created this outside of yourself as opposed to from within yourself, that's a really good point to think about. That's when you'll realize that it's a problem, right? So when it comes from within yourself, it'll just feel natural. It'll just feel like, okay, well, yeah, when I walk into this boardroom, I'm just doing this. Or same as me, like when I step up on stage, I'm just a little bit, I guess, more energetic because I understand I've done drama, I've done acting, all that kind of stuff growing up. So I understand that in order to engage people from a big, one person on a big stage in front of lots and lots of people, you just need to be that little bit more active. You need to be that little bit more engaging because a lot of it gets basically lost in translation, right? So that's fine, but that's just part of me. That's just part of me that I don't always do 24/7 because that would require a lot of energy. But I just it's part of me. It comes from within me, right? And the same thing when I sit down with, my clients or whatever it is, and I'm working on something that's quite deep and quite quite internal or something like that. I won't be like this and I won't be, blah, 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 unless the conversation calls for it. I will, go within into the part of me that's a little bit more calm, a little bit more introverted to work the situation the way that it needs to be, but it's coming from within. It's not me stepping out of myself into basically going, oh, okay, I've got to go do this role and then I've got to go do that role and I've got to act like this over here and act like this over here. And it's basically like being an actor, right? Where you're actually having to step into someone else's shoes and be someone else and imagine what they're going through and blah, 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 but it does not feel within you and it drains you, right? I'm going to have to finish up soon because my battery is draining. But that's basically what I wanted to talk about. So have a think about what is your private versus your public persona. How different are they? And is one of them actually, is the fact that your public persona, the way that you've portrayed yourself, is this feeling like something that's draining you and that's putting you in a position where you feel unworthy if you're just being yourself? Do you feel like couch you, chilling out with your partner or your friends or whatever, isn't worthy enough? It's not good enough to be proud of because you've got this whole other persona that you've put up and that's not really real, but it's what everybody thinks of you, right? And then have a look at, well, what kind of sabotage and what kind of addictions could be coming up from this because you're basically trying to numb your soul, which is crying out when you're in this public persona that isn't really you, and it's crying and it's dying, and then you come home and you want to basically just crawl into a hole and just sabotage and choose an addiction to fall into to make yourself feel better, to basically numb the pain of that, right? So if you're seeing any of these patterns, that is what we are talking about today. That is what we want to be looking at. As always, if you have any questions, if you want to PM me, private message, direct message, whatever you want to call it, please feel free to do so. You can leave a comment down below if you have any other comments or questions when you're rewatching this later. And so this is we're in September 2017 because I know this is going to go on a replay on YouTube. So if you are looking at getting some coaching, getting some like ass kicking and support and guidance and getting your life moving the way that you want to. I am taking on new clients this month, so please make sure private message me. You can check out all of my packages at anabrooks.com.au/coaching. So you can definitely check that out over there. But then private message me and we'll just have a chat and make sure that, you know, we fit, that we're a good fit, that kind of stuff. We might even have a chat over the phone or Skype if you're overseas. I'm in Australia here. And basically that's how we take it from there. We just work out that we're a good fit, work out that I can help you with this. And then we get straight into it. It's very full on, but it's always about exactly what you need, and it's always exactly at your pace regardless. So make sure if you're interested in that, message me now, because I've only got a few spots left for this month for this coaching. And apart from that, we are done. I hope you have an amazing day. Remember to live life on purpose. I'll see you soon. Bye.